Welcome back to Coffee Time with Norm, episode 2. We're excited to have you with us today, either live like Nathan or watching the recording, as so many of you did last week. We're incredibly grateful that we had such a phenomenal response to the coffee time last week, and we're glad that everybody was able to catch the replay okay. We wanted to make a special announcement today that we just picked up our brand new installation manuals that are going to be included with every order. It's a full color book, and it has the installation photo slideshow at the back of it to help as well. The way that it works is in the, where is it? There we go. In the table of contents, it's going to be check marked the pages that are applicable to you, and they're going to be highlighted throughout the book so that you know which pages are appropriate for you, whether you have plastic covering or tarp covering and anchor posts or base brackets, that kind of idea. And so we are excited that it is ready to go, and so it'll be going out with all new orders, and it is available on our website that you can download as of this morning, and so you can have a peek at it. You just don't get the nicely bound easy to handle book. So we look forward to sharing that with you. And today, Norm is going to cover ventilation. And in the celebration of Organic Week this week, we have posts on our website every day this week addressing different greenhouse and organic topics. Today's was season extension of Hanley tunnels, which we were talking about just before we started recording. And so it's something that we are excited to and grateful to all of the organic farmers that we're able to deal with, and we are happy to support this week of education and awareness. And so the ventilation ties in with that, and if we have some time at the end, we are also going to, Norm is also going to discuss anchoring, and which is something that is, it's noted in our book. There's no such thing as too many anchors. And we just read the review in the Rural Delivery, which is an East Coast publication. And that was one of the points that he noted multiple times, was about there's no such thing as too many anchors. That's become one of Norm's taglines now as well. And so we're happy to share that with everybody. So Norm, did you want to take it away?
Thank you, Andy. And yeah, as Andy was alluding to, the organic sector is a vital part of our business, as far as the amount of sales that we get, which are very important, but it's also a cause that's very close to my heart. It is all principles that I adhere to myself, and do whatever I can to make sure that other people are thinking like-minded. Now, what I was going to talk about today was ventilation. Like, obviously, ventilation is a critical thing in operating a greenhouse. Every plant has a threshold temperature that if you go above that, it stops growing, or if you get even worse, it's going to kill it. So for the greenhouses that are small and short, the simplest way is to ventilate through the ends. Now, obviously, that will only work if you are in line with the prevailing winds and you're not surrounded by trees too much. Like in the photograph there is a significant tree line behind the structure that is definitely going to impact the effectiveness of just flowing through. The other thing that is really important when you're going that way is to have large enough openings, and in most cases, it will equal at least half of the end. So now, if the structure is a little bit longer, the next step up from that is the roll-up sides. And with the roll-up sides, it's a very economical way of ventilating, but the downside to it is you have to be there to open it, you have to be there to close it. Typically the cover goes from ground, like it goes all the way ground to ground, and then at a certain point, typically about 4 feet up from the ground, the cover is attached permanently, and then the balance rolls up and down. If you're in an extremely windy location, you would have that as a smaller, like 2 feet is probably good. Meanwhile, if you're totally surrounded by trees, then you'd probably have to go to like 6 feet. Now, one of the things to work sort of in conjunction with the roll-up sides, and what you can see in this photograph there on the left, is a vent near the peak at both ends. Now, in the finished greenhouse, there is a small window that is pushed open from the inside, and that's the way that it's typically been done. The other photograph is what we refer to as a center pivoting gable vent. Now, the reason why that is a lot more effective and useful is that because it pivots in the middle, it's always weight neutral. So like you're not going to get the wind buffeting at it. Because there is a rope that goes from the top and the bottom through a double pulley, you can control it from the ground. So if you need it open just a wee little bit, you can do that and tie it off. If you need it to be all the way open, it will open to horizontally, but it always deflects the rain out and it moves the incoming air up to the top. Now, but again, like the downside to this is that you have to be there to open it, you have to be there to close it. So there is a way of making that automatic in that we have motorized louvers. Now they come in various sizes. They have a little motor to them. And as you can see, there's power will be supplied to that when the temperature is too hot. So that motor becomes active and it opens the little blades. Now, like as I said, this comes in various sizes, up to 48 inches square. So, but as with anything that is motorized and especially made out of aluminum like this, it is quite a bit more pricey, but the advantage is that you can make it automatic. Usually, these louvers are worked in conjunction with exhaust fans. Now, exhaust fans are considered forced ventilation. Now, what the picture that Andy has up there is not, that's a circulating fan, and that's a separate point. The exhaust fans will be mounted in the wall and usually to work with the wind. And again, the advantage to that is it's tied to a thermostat so that at whatever temperature you set it at, then it comes on and away it goes. When it's been satisfied, it shuts off. The downside to the forced ventilation is that the initial cost is fairly high, but the operating costs are also quite high because quite often these use 1 horsepower and for the bigger greenhouses, 1.5 horsepower motors, which consume a fair bit of electricity. Now, these fans will work in tandem with the louvers. So when the fan comes on, the louver opens. So you're creating this draw through the greenhouse. And there is a formula, I'm not going to get into that because technical right now, but there is a proper ratio between the size of the fan and the size of the louver so that you're creating turbulence as the air comes in. The last point, and this is something, ventilation is something that progressively gets more expensive, but also progressively does sort of a better job. And the final way of ventilating is through a roof vent. Now, So the way a roof vent works, it works for the full length of the ridge, and it will open up. And we do have a couple of pictures that will show how that works. Now, this one picture, this one here is the motor, and I'll get to that in 1 second. But this goes the length of the structure, and you can see there's all these push arms. So when it requires cooling, the drive shaft is going to start turning, and it turns very, very slowly. I've equated it to about as exciting as watching paint dry, because when this is on a motor, this is 1/3 of an RPM per minute. So like it turns very slowly. But the whole thing pushes up, and you can go like, again, a small opening, you can go bigger opening depending on how much you want. But the really effective part of that is that it's at the roof where all the heat is, and you can open it even like a small, like an inch or two, a few centimeters, times the full length is quite an opening. And it's always done downwind. So like you don't want to have it, like if the wind is coming from this way, you're not opening up this way where the wind blows in. The idea is the wind comes over like this and creates a vacuum where it sucks the warm air out. Now, there's again 2 ways that this can be done. You can do it manually with a chain-driven gearbox, which is attached to it. That gearbox combination is typically about $600. You have to be there to open it, you have to be there to close it. Sort of the real cream of the crop type of thing is this kind of a motor, which is pictured here. Now this is an incremental controller. So, and there's whole electronics involved with it. That's not that hard to decipher, but you're going to set that so that it will open in stages. And it's 5 stages, and you can control the size of each stage. Again, because that turns so slowly, in March, you want those stages to be very small. So when it opens the first stage, you want like maybe a centimeter. And then the second stage is another one, because this goes like 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes, and another 5 minutes. Well, the thing is, if the sun goes behind a cloud in March, the temperature can drop very quickly. So if you have the window open quite a ways, and it's going to start to come down and down and down and down, it can take as long as 15 minutes to close. So you don't want it open very far. Whereas like if you're in summertime, first stage, you can open, 10 centimeters. And then you can open farther. You can have it open all the way. Again, because the cooling time will be slow. So the real disadvantage to this system is the cost, because you're looking at about $3,000 plus. And but again, it's extremely effective. So if you've got a big area, it's got a large area that it's ventilating, that cost as a cost per square foot is going to be spread out. So these are, just to recap again, the different things of ventilation that we do. So you can go through the ends, keeping it simple. You can add roll-up sides in a combination with the peak. One thing that I didn't mention about that can also be your first stage ventilating. So you open it a crack in February, March, it gets rid of some moisture. The next stage would be to go to exhaust fans, the forced ventilation, which is, again, easily to automate. And then the real best way of doing it, the most effective way, is the roof vent. So that is a quick overview of the ventilation. It is, like I could literally talk for hours, because there are so many little subtle variations, but that's not the idea here. It's more to just get you thinking along the choices.